Likkutei Torah, Devarim, page Aleph, second column. Okay, this Maimer that the Rebbe was seeing b'mishpat tipad v'shaveh tzedakah, which is the last verse of the Torah. So the Rebbe is explaining the concept, how is it possible that Torah could be new every single day. So the Rebbe started explaining that neshamas are even greater than malachim. Malachim were created either on the second day, the fifth day. Neshamas are even higher. And he says, l'chayra we say, neshamas and nesati be tehered, and then we say, and meidem lach. So l'chayra, how can you say, meidem lach, that we agree to Hashem? That means there's an argument, and I agree to you. I can't agree to you if we're not arguing. Then you can't say the word I agree. So the Rebbe explains there's das elyon and there's das tachten. There's Hashem's perspective and there's our perspective. From Hashem's perspective is He exists and we don't. From our perspective, we exist and He doesn't. We have to think about it. So he said, what do we mean? What do we agree? We agree that what Hashem is saying is really right. That really He is the only existence. Now,
Hashem thinks we don't exist.
What? From his perspective, the only thing that ain't mulvadi. I mean, there's what?
He created our
Yeah, he created our opinion too. Yeah, that means in godliness there's two opinions, but there's godliness from his perspective, godliness from our perspective. And he says, how does a person get to this level? So he says that's the level of Yahafta, and you have Sukkot Zimra, and you have all these preparations. So he says, how do you come to the level of Yahafta? He says, this level of realization that made them anachnoloch, that the only thing that exists is really Hashem, where does the Jew get this level from? He gets it from the level of Yahafta, which means, what does this mean? Creation is something from nothing, like it says, that this level of Malchus, that Hashem is called King, which is not the level of essence of Hashem, gives the life to everything. In other words, what is the meditation? That world exists is only from the level of Malchus, from Hashem's level of kingdom. Now, how does a king govern a country? Thank you. A king governs a country only with his name. The king himself is not in the country. He stays in the palace. His essence is not revealed into the country. And Meshaltcha is even lower than Melucha, because Meshal Bar Korcha Shlei B'Tevasam, it's without, not even good for them, which is Chitzenius Midas Malchusi, which is only the external level of Malchus. Hu B'chol Der V'der, in every generation. In other words, I'll try to sing like this. How does a person come to this realization? Is through the meditation in Shema and Baruch Shem. What is the level of Baruch Shem? That we understand, meditation-wise, that the only power of Hashem that created the entire spiritual and physical universe is only a revelation of Hashem. It's not even the essence of Hashem. It's like a melech that Shmei Nikra Aleim. It's only the name is controlling it. Because because what does he say? Malchus kol elamim. Okay, the first half of the pasuk says, your Malchus is the kingdom of all worlds, meaning spiritual and physical. Umemshaltecha, and memshala is a dictatorship. Melucha, like we say in davening, malchusi berotzin kiblu aleim. To be a melech, you have to willingly accept him. If you don't willingly accept a king, he's not a king, but he's a dictator. That's moshel. Memshaltecha is a dictator. So what do we say? Malchus kol elamim. All the worlds come from the level of Malchus, which is only the name of Hashem. It's not even anywhere near the essence of Hashem. And then he says, Umemshaltecha, Hashem controls against the will of the people, b'chol dar v'dar, in every generation. What do you mean every generation? He said there are generations of Rishoyim, Dar HaMabel, Dar HaFlaga, that didn't accept Hashem as king. And yet, Hashem was their dictator. So in other words, if you want, he's your king. If you don't want, he'll be a dictator anyway. Shekibah Malbafov became Nimshach Lem Chayis Rav. Hashem still gave them abundance of power in a level of Memshaltecha. Okay? So he says, how do you get to the level of a Yahavta? By meditating into Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, basically Ein Od Milvadai. And the next is Beinanis, to bring it down to the Yahavta, is Baruch Shem Kaved Malchus Le'el Void, which means there's Malchus and there's Memshala, and the level of Malchus is the way Hashem reveals himself into the world. And remember, we learned already in other Maimorim, the Alter Rebbe said, in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, they didn't say Baruch Shem. They went straight from Shema into the Yahavta. They were able to take this baininess of Shema, which is Hashem Echad, basically Ein Od Milvadai, and go straight from there to the Yahavta. Later, when there was the descent of the generations, even in those days, can you imagine? There was a Yerida Saderis, so they couldn't go straight from the Yahavta, Echad to the Yahavta. So there had to be a second Tizbaininus. That the creation of the world comes from Malchus. And that only Melech Shmei Nikra Leh. Then you can bring it down into a lower level. V'hinei kol in the Mesalyenim, all the higher words. Gan Eden Tachnun Shutainig Nifla. Me'elam Hazeh, the pleasures of Gan Eden, he says, are infinitely greater than the pleasures of this world. What does that mean? Kamar Mazal, Mut of the Ladaina, Acher, the Gemara says in Chagiga Baracha, it's worth for him to go to be punished in Gehenim, okay, to come to the world to come. That means he's still tortured, it's worth it to come to the world to come. But Gan Eden, and then you have even the higher level of Gan Eden. V'yesh Eid Aliyas Le'ein Ketz. There's infinite levels after levels after levels. Where did it come from? The level of Malchus only. It only comes from Malchus, which is only array of godliness. Therefore it's called Yesh Mi'ayin. Because the creation of the creations is the level shul ka'ayin ve'efes is nothing compared to Hashem. In other words, like this. Dr. Rebbe is saying here a second definition of Yesh Mi'ayin. One definition, why would you call it Yesh Mi'ayin? Because in our world, we are tangible, we are existing. The level of godliness in our perspective doesn't exist. That's one interpretation. A second interpretation that Alter Rebbe is saying here, this is well known all over Chassidus, that what does it mean, Yesh Mi'ayin? It means the level of world is created from a minute level of godliness, which is nothing compared to real godliness. Because it comes from Malchus, which is only speech, which is only the name of the king. So the second interpretation of Yesh Mi'ayin is, Vitaka Yesh, and it comes from a level of Elokus, which compared to godliness is ayin, is nothing. It's only a ray of a ray. So he says, okay, and even then, even though it's only a ray of a ray of a ray, even then it's still makif. It still can't come into internalization. Because the world is so low, and that even the ray is so great, it can only come in external. Like the king, that only his name controls the country. Again, so the Alter Rebbe is explaining how does a person come to this level of Yahavta, or the realization that made them anachnu loch, that in reality Hashem is the only existence and we don't exist. He says through meditation into Shema V'Ahavta, Baruch Shem, and then we come to the realization that it's all nothing. This whole level comes from the level of Ishtausha V'Sava Selim Esayenim in the creation of the higher worlds. But in this world, through tshuva and good deeds, and this is the Zbaininus that a person needs to understand. All of Gan Eden, the highest, the lowest, higher than Gan Eden is only Bria. Higher than Atzilus, higher, all that is all ayin. Compared to Hashem, it's nothing. Yet when a person does a little mitzvah, he connects to the essence of Hashem, not to the revelation of Hashem that's called ayin. In other words, even Bria up there, which where the Malachim are, Gan Eden is in the world of Bria, it's still ayin, that's nothing compared to Hashem. Therefore, the Mishnah says one tshuva ma'asim tovim in olam hazeh is better than the whole olam haba. Olam haba is only the ray of the Shekhinah, it's ayin. And this connects to the essence. And this is the meditation, by the way, that a person needs to meditate in. All the world are nothing, and when I do a little mitzvah, I connect to the essence. Another thing a person needs to realize and meditate, you can only go up gradually. First you need Kafar Kela, then you need Gehenim, then you need Gan Eden Atachten, then you need Nahar Dinah, which is a spiritual river that you need to travel between the lower Gan Eden to the higher Gan Eden. There's a spiritual Gan Eden Elyon, Kamishma Torah, based on what your level is. In other words, once you come, after 120 years, once we come up there, whatever we did in this world is what we're going to get in the world to come. You can't change anything. Remember, we learned that already. Olam haba, nothing's changeable. You can't do tshuva in Olam haba. You know, like they tell the famous story, a rich miser came up to Olam haba, and he said, man, you should have given tzedakah, you didn't give enough, you're going to Gehenim. So he says, 1 minute, I'll write you a check, you know. So they answered him up there, here we don't take checks, here we take receipts. Show us what you gave, then we'll deal with it. Up there you can't change anything, you can't do tshuva up there. You know, a guy comes up there, he says, okay man, you're going to Gehenim. He says, no, I'll do tshuva, it's too late. But ba'olam hazeh yachol ishtanis min hakatza lakatza miyad kerega. You can instantaneously change yourself from being a complete rasha to a complete tzaddik, like the halacha is shladina. If a guy gives a woman a ring and says, you are consecrated to me with this ring on the condition I'm a tzaddik gamor. The then is mekudeshes. It's suffix mekudeshes. Afilu rasha gamor, even if he's a complete rasha. Why? Shemihir tshuva. Maybe he did tshuva. Maybe he did tshuva. That means in 1 second the guy's a rashi gamor, and we say a guy does kedushin to the woman on the condition he's a tzaddik gamor. It might be a kedushin because maybe he did tshuva. That becomes in the level of Seviv. Seviv is above world. If Seviv is above world, then there's no levels. In 1 second you can go from one extreme to the next. When you're climbing a wall, you're climbing a mountain, you can't go from the floor to the top in 1 second. You can't. Because you have to walk up the steps. But from Makiv level, a helicopter, you can go straight to the top. It's a very interesting thing from the Rebbe about this. In the Machlekes, there's an argument in the Gemara, who's greater, Baal Tshuva or a Tzaddik? So even though the halacha should be a tzaddik based on the rules of Gemara, but the Rambam and everybody paskins about tshuva is greater than a tzaddik. So the Rogatchover wants to bring a proof to this. There's a very famous, many sichos in the Rebbe. So the Rogatchover wants to prove to this, how do you know Baal Tshuva is greater than the tzaddik? Because, no, the question is like this. If a guy says, I'm in a condition, I'm a tzaddik gomor, yeah, if a Baal Tshuva is not as great as a tzaddik, then it shouldn't be a valid kedushin. He says, and the condition I'm a tzaddik. Because maybe he did tshuva. But if he maybe did tshuva and Baal Tshuva is lower than a tzaddik, then it shouldn't be a valid kedushin either. Because he's not a tzaddik, he's only a Baal Tshuva. So from here, the Rogatchover proves that the Baal Tshuva is greater than a tzaddik. So the Rebbe asks on that, it's also not true. Because if a Baal Tshuva is greater than a tzaddik, the din is, if what your condition is, even if the condition is better than what they are, it's not valid. So if a Baal Tshuva is greater than a tzaddik, and he says, you are Mekadesh to me on the condition I'm a tzaddik, and he's a Baal Tshuva, it shouldn't also be valid because it's greater than a tzaddik. And he only said a tzaddik.
It should be exactly a tzaddik.
It has to be exactly a tzaddik. So how does it work? So the Rebbe explains there's a level of tshuva that makes you a tzaddik, and there's a level of tshuva that makes you a Baal Tshuva. Yeah, so that instantaneous tshuva basically can make you a tzaddik, not a level of Baal Tshuva. Anyway, but here the Rebbe shows that a person realizes the whole Eilam Haba, not only is it one word from Hashem's mouth, and a mitzvah is the essence of Hashem, but here you can go from one extreme. In 1 second, a guy could be a Rosh Gomer, and on his deathbed, the last second he's alive, he does tshuva, it's all wiped out. That's why the Mishnah says you have to do tshuva one day before you die. So the commentators explain, what does the Mishnah mean? Nobody knows when they're going to die. So every day you have to do tshuva because maybe you'll die tomorrow. It's like the guy says, what bus stop do I get off? He says, get off the stop before me. You know what I mean? He's supposed to know. Okay, mitam zeh. Amen azal yofet shachas b'tshuva meisim teibel mazeh. Or meirev kol perish shel maila meilam haba nikro kol. Olam haba is called kol, all, and this is meirev kol, even greater than kol. L'chein yevi after b'chol nafshecha b'mesiras nefesh. Therefore, the person through this realization meditation will come to a level of mesiras nefesh. Not only mesiras haguf bilvad, not only giving over his body, in other words, ready to die al kiddush Hashem, but the neshama v'atachas lahamshich ein tzar hasevav lamata through Torah mitzvahs. Okay, so the Rebbe is answering now. Now he's going to say the answer to the question he asked. He basically asked, if Torah was given 3,500 years ago, how could we say Asher Nechi Mitzavcha Hayim? I'm commanding you today that is brand new today. You never see a kid put on tefillin for the first time. He's all excited. And a year later, it ain't no excitement anymore. Because it's new, you're excited about it. So l'chayra, how can we say, B'chol yem yu benecha chadoshim, or ki chadoshim? So he says, because it's a level of anechi mitzavcha. Anechi misha anechi atzmusa yizbarech. Mitzavcha bind you, loshen his kashrus, connects you and he binds you. Meaning, there is a level of elokus in Shem Kaved Malchusei, which is Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya. Okay, the three levels. But there's a level of anechi, which is even higher than Seviv, that level of Anechi is above time and place. So when the Pasuk says, Asher Anechi Mitzavcha Hayem, I, Anechi, above time and place, am binding you today. Over there's no time and place. Lashem v'lei b'chin Hashem shayim dafka v'lei l'mocha b'elam haba she'ein arak l'kabel schar mitzol, need to get reward. So therefore he says like this, when a person meditates through his braininess, that mitzvah connects me to the level of Anechi, Misha Anechi, I am who I am, which is higher than names, higher than everything, the essence of Hashem, a person will realize it's above time and place. So therefore it's brand new. The Alter Rebbe says, the famous quote of the Alter Rebbe in Tanya Perek Chafei, that the Yichud Zel L'maylo Nitzchi L'elam Void, when a Jew does a mitzvah, they connect to Hashem. So let's say you put on tefillin from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Okay, so you connect it 7 to 8. So a person thinks, okay, I take off the tefillin, that's it. He says, no. Because you're connecting to the essence of Hashem, and the essence of Hashem is above time and place, so that bond is not from 7 to 8. It's eternal. Because you connect it to a level of godliness which is above time and place.
About 6 to 7.
No, that doesn't. You put on tefillin Shabbos, you don't connect to Hashem. You have to put on the right times. Bizbein is a b'chol yom. Because only in this world, can he bring down the essence, therefore the Zohar calls the mitzvahs the 248 limbs of Hashem, meaning it's the 248 different ways. But what does a limb do? It brings down the power of the neshama into that particular limb. The eye see and the mouth talks and so on. There's a vein in the limb from the brain. There's a vein in the limb that is connected to the brain. Therefore, you want to move, you move. Because through the meditation of the Yohavta, you come to Anechi. Because the love, this braininess, gets you to do the mitzvah. So through the Yohavta, like understanding that Eined Movade, this is only Kvei Malchose, it's nothing, and this is the essence, then you come to the connection with Anechi. What does it mean? After S, Hashem Elokecha, the Alter Rebbe is explaining that what is the love? That Havaya, the infinite, should become Elokecha, become internalized. What is in the left side? The bitterness, not depression, the bitterness. That is Meshuk, that is, what's the word Meshuk? Is like deeply involved in worldly things. V'rechok me'Hashem, echol ha'yamani simcha shel mitzvah, yismach Yisrael ba'esav, hein ha'mitzvah shenislab shebasiyah, ba'ayim b'sefer shel beinim perek lamed daled, v'chol shetiyam meridus yesem me'aheded, the more bitterness you have from being far away from Hashem, the more drawn to Hashem you're going to be. Abstinence makes the heart grow fonder. Even though now we don't feel this connection to the essence, he's saying here, you do a mitzvah, you connect to the essence. So he said, but now we're planting the seeds. Or to give a more modern day example, the money is in the trust fund. It's not usable, it's not visible until the time comes. So now that doesn't mean you don't have the money. The money is in the bank, except you don't have access to it until the time. You put the connection to the essence of Hashem is here. It's not revealed yet because the world can't handle until Mashiach comes. V'zeh causes zerei tzedakis, matzmiach yeshuos, vayish Hashem d'shin ayin nehedim, v'adei ze k'mei adam sheyesh li teva mleim avonos u'tevius. Yeah? A guy knows that he has in the vault, he has millions of diamonds and gold and pearls and everything. He knows he has it. He doesn't see it. He doesn't even have the key to it now. But he still knows, so it's not usable. But he knows he has it. So Sameach made Af Sheinu Re'esim came to good imitate. Okay, so this is the meditation, how a person can realize that the mitzvahs are every day.
What are the 375 lights?
There's Shin Ayin Ein Ne'erin, from it says Vayish Hashem. What it is 375 revelations of Gan Eden.
It is 310.
That's Eilemis. This is lights. Different stuff.
What is the other one?
What?
What is it? 310 and what? 365?
375 lights.
Lights.
Yeah.
There's different 375 different kind of lights.
Yeah. For those that come Sunday morning, they come, you know.
What is it? 310?
Hold on.
Or that one?
There's 4 worlds. How do you get from 4 worlds to 310?
There's nothing to do with this. You're asking question, Mukhal. You have 10, and then you have 4 worlds, and then you have Eilam Sein Mispar, and then you have Shai Eilamis. So some of Farshim say Shai Eilamis is half of Tayar plus 7 is Tav Reish Chav, half of it is Shin Yud, it's half, whatever. All these Nahid and the lights. Who cares? Who knows and who cares, basically. It's all scholastic, has nothing to do with practical.
Why is Alter Rebbe repeating here?
Repeating what?
Everything that we have in me, what it is trying to prove.
What do you mean we learn to be for it? That's how we know it from these Maimorim. And different Maimorim. Maimorim a lot of times repeat the same thing. Yes, there's a Yom Yom, right? That each Rebbe had a Maimer that they would repeat every 2-3 years just to purify the air. It was exactly the same Maimer. But the more times Alter Rebbe says it, the more times it knocks into our head. The famous thing, there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Shmuel HaKot Neimer, Feli Vecha Tismach, V'Yogad, V'Koshal Yosmach Libecha, Ben Yeir Hashem V'Rabbe Einav. Shmuel HaKot says a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, and all he does is quote a pasuk in Mishlei. He doesn't add a word, he doesn't take off a word, he quotes Shmuel HaKot Neimer. Shmuel HaKot says, Ben Feli Vecha Tismach, it's a whole pasuk in Mishlei. So all the Mepharshim asked, so what did he say? Shlema Melech Hamad, not Shmuel HaKot Neimer. Why does he say Shmuel HaKot Neimer? So explanation is, he lived with it. Omer, present tense. Shmuel HaKot lived with the pasuk. It became his own. It's like, but there's a very interesting halacha question. The Mishnah says, you have to say, Omer davar b'shem Amri mevi golu li'olam. If you have to say something in the name of the one you heard it, you bring redemption to the world. And poskim write, if you don't, you're stealing. It's like today, copyright things, you steal. Yeah. So l'cher we find Rashi quotes Medrashim, Rashi quotes Gemaras, and he doesn't say who said it. The Rebbe's whole unique way of learning Chumash is when Rashi does say it, is because he's answering a question by the name that we wouldn't have understood otherwise. Or you find people bring down from previous, they don't say who it is. So one of the halachic answers is that if you internalize it, it becomes yours, it's yours.